Hey guys, welcome to my channel. Don't forget to like and subscribe. Let's begin. It was a hot day on the Thousand Sunny, and instead of Nami picking mandarins, she was sunbathing. The ship was quiet. For Nami it was peaceful, and with peace came a relaxed Nami. Everyone else went looking around the island they had docked at. Nami was incontent when her quietness was interrupted by none other than Monkey D. Luffy, her captain, who since they had docked was asleep. Luffy was running all around the ship, trying to find Sanji, yelling, "Sanji, I'm hungry, where's the food?" "Oi Sanji." Nami tried to ignore, but she couldn't, so she got from where she was sunbathing, picked up her klima tact and aimed at Luffy. She shot bubbles filled with lighting that gathered all around Luffy and picked him up. Nami didn't expect that but just laughed, until the bubbles gave out on Luffy, over the ocean. He fell right into the water and Nami didn't give it a second thought. She grabbed his hat, placed it on the deck, and then she jumped right into the water and rescued him. She swam to the shore of the dock where the boat was. That was when it happened. She laid him down on the sand, checked to see if he was breathing, and saw that he wasn't. Nami once again didn't give it a second thought and gave him mouth to mouth, which brought him back, and then she carefully looked at his face. She started thinking to herself, Luffy has sure grown handsome in the last 2 years and stronger. Wait, what am I thinking? It's Luffy, he's still a kid. But Nami couldn't bring her eyes away from his face. Automatically her hand moved a piece of hair away from his face. Her face turned red and her heart started to beat. Thankfully she was broken out of this trance when he started to stir. His eyes started to open slowly and saw the sun, then Nami. Luffy looked over at Nami and asked, "Who are you?" Nami's eyes went wide with shock until she heard a chuckle and saw Luffy giggling to himself. Nami, with her punch that can only hurt him, just unleashed it. Luffy rubbed his face where Nami punched and said, "Ow, Nami, what's your deal? You had me worried." "I had you worried?" "Yes Luffy, you had me worried." "How did I have you worried?" he asked as he was standing up. "Well, let me start from the beginning. After you fell into the ocean, I rescued you. When I brought you to shore, you weren't breathing, so I had to give you mouth to mouth. Then you play that prank where you can't remember me. Luffy, sometimes you can just be a big idiot. I wonder why I even." Nami was interrupted when Luffy gave her hug. She was more shocked by him talking and saying, "Nami, sorry I worried you, I was just having fun." "Sorry Nami." His hug got tighter as he was apologizing and Nami accepted it. They then broke the hug and walked back to the ship. As they were walking back to the ship, Nami looked at Luffy's back and noticed something that wasn't there before. His shirt had come off. Nami came to the realization that she had hugged Luffy while he was shirtless. Well, it didn't bother her and his shirt had to be somewhere. They walked back to the ship quietly. Waves pushing against the sand was all could be heard. They reached the ship and then Luffy asked, "Nami, where's my hat?" "I put it down on the deck after you fell into the water." "Ah, I see it. Thanks Nami. You're the only one who knows how to care for it." Nami's face turned red again and she turned before Luffy could see it. She replied, "No problem Luffy." Nami had to think of a quick way to get away from Luffy, and that's when the plan hit her head. "Ah, Luffy, sorry, but I have to go work on something." With that she ran off to her navigation room. As she entered she shut the door behind her, locked it and sat next to it. Nami's mind wandered and she started thinking, what's wrong with me? Why am I blushing around him? Why is he making me like this? Wish these feelings would go away. When did they emerge? Those 3 questions hit her head and then the answer hit her. I know when they emerged. When he saved me from Arlong, from death. The many times he saved me made these feelings come. Now that I think about it, I have never had anyone care for like Luffy has. Except Belmere, Najiko, and my village. I must really be in love. After Nami had locked herself in her navigation room, Luffy was on the deck, looking at Nami's door, and he was thinking to himself, that was weird. Nami just running off like that. Luffy then touched his face, especially the spot where Nami had hit him. It still hurt, and then he came to the realization, Nami is the only one who can cause him pain. Luffy rubbed his pained cheek and then thought to himself, why is she the only one who can hurt me? Next to Grandpa, of course. Now his punches hurt. As Luffy was pondering and his stomach was grumbling even louder, he decided to go find some food. As he was looking for food, Luffy started to think to himself, Nami has sure become beautiful in appearance. Her long orange hair reminds me of the ocean. Is this what 2 years does? Changes everything. I never thought of that. Luffy was eating until his stomach started to hurt. He put down the food and just left it there. He got up from where he was sitting and his stomach pain went away, but now it felt like butterflies were flying around. Luffy didn't remember eating butterfly. Heck, he thought he had just eaten chicken. Luffy went looking for Chopper, for if Luffy was sick then Chopper would be able to help. Luffy walked up to Chopper's room, to see a note that said, Luffy went looking around the village we have docked at.
Maybe there'll be some ingredients for medicine, Luffy thought to himself. Wait, is everyone gone, except Nami?
That's when the butterflies increased. Luffy grabbed his stomach. Luffy figured he had no choice, he had to go see Nami. Luffy walked to Nami's navigation room while his stomach got worse. His heart started beating very fast, and Luffy himself started to feel lightheaded. Luffy started thinking, what did I eat? He thought he was going to pass out before he got to Nami. Luffy had made it to Nami's door and tried to open it, but no avail. He had to knock on the door and say, Nami, help, I don't feel so well. Nami had heard this and walked to the door and asked, this better not be another trick, Luffy? For if it is, I will kick you into the water. Nami, it's not. I honestly don't feel well. Please open the door. Alright, hang on, let me unlock it. Nami went to unlock the door, to see a Luffy who looked sick, that he was leaning on the door opening. Luffy smiled when he saw Nami, which made Nami blush, and then it happened. Luffy had lost balance and within a few minutes, he had landed on top of Nami, which made them both fall to the floor. Both Nami and Luffy were on the floor and Luffy was on top of Nami. Luffy wasn't feeling so well after he ate something. While for Nami this was uncomfortable, it was bad enough she could hear his heartbeat, but she could hear it beat 1,000 times a minute. As she listened, she could hear her own heartbeat and it was beating just as loud as his was. The only thing that made this bearable was that his body was warm. Luffy was on top of Nami, and he could hear her heartbeat and it sounded like a drum was being beat. He then felt something, her warmth. To Luffy, Nami's body temperature was making him feel better. Luffy didn't want to leave her or her warmth. There they were, on the floor, not wanting because of the warmth that was being shared between them both. Luffy's head lifted up on its own, and then his eyes looked into Nami's. Then his face was getting closer and closer to Nami's face. Nami started to think, wait, what is he doing? He's getting closer to me? Why can't I move? Do I want him to kiss me? Not second thought went through her mind, when his lips were on top of hers. The kiss that was being shared between these two made Luffy's stomach feel better, but he was still warm. The kiss had made Nami's eyes open wide and her body had gone numb. Luffy then lifted his head and looked down at Nami. Luffy then said, what just happened? My tummy ache is gone. Nami, are your lips made out of medicine? Smack. Nami did to get Luffy off of her and then she stood up and Luffy asked, Oi Nami, what was that for? You kissed me, for no apparent reason, said Nami with a blush. Kiss? Luffy, do you know what a kiss is? No, I mean I always thought it was just mouth to mouth. What? Nami, you looked pale, so figured I would give you mouth to mouth. I looked pale? Yeah, after I landed on you, you had become warm and then you looked pale. I just thought because you did it for me. Smack. Luffy, that's not what mouth to mouth is for. Mouth to mouth is putting air into someone else so they can breathe. You didn't do any of that, you just put your lips on mine, that is why it's called a kiss. Here, let me show you the difference. Nami bent down close to Luffy's face, placed her lips on his. Then Nami removed her lips and punched Luffy to the ground, closed his nose and did mouth to mouth. Nami got up once again and said, Luffy, that's the difference between kissing and mouth to mouth. Nami came to the realization that she had just kissed Luffy. Her face turned red and she turned around. Luffy was shell-shocked but he got up anyways and walked towards Nami. Nami was slowly backing up until she hit the wall. Luffy placed both hands on the wall, on each side of Nami, and he looked at Nami, who in return was staring back at him. Nami started to tremble from just Luffy's stare, and a stare it was. Luffy's onyx eyes looked like they weren't looking at her but her soul at that moment. Luffy was looking at Nami, and asked, Are your lips made of medicine? My stomach ache went away after what was it called? Oh, a kiss. Nami gave Luffy a confused look after he asked that question, and then she asked, Why do you think my lips are made out of medicine? They made me feel better. What do you mean they made you feel better? I believe I told you, I had a stomach after I did that kiss, and I got better. Luffy, when did the stomach ache start? When I was eating. What did you eat? I don't remember, it was just food. What were you doing while eating? Thinking. That surprised Nami. Luffy, what were you thinking about? You, Luffy said it like it was no big thing. Me? Yep, you, and that's when my stomach ache started. Nami started thinking to herself, he was thinking of me? Why would he be thinking of me? Nami spoke up and asked, why were you thinking of me? What was it about me you were thinking of? Luffy scratched his head and spoke, Nami, I was thinking about your hair and how long it got. How your hair reminded me of the ocean. Anything else? Well, I was thinking about how 2 years can change a person. Luffy, anything else? How beautiful you had become. With that said, Luffy grabbed his stomach and fell to the floor. Nami looked panicked and bent down. Nami was looking at Luffy with a worried look. She had no clue what to do. Then she remembered that it took a kiss to make him feel better. She grabbed Luffy's face, which had become warm. Nami started thinking, Luffy was thinking about me, and how beautiful I had become. He said the kiss made him feel better. Is love his medicine? Luffy started to groan and he grabbed his stomach. Nami didn't know what to do, except a kiss. So Nami bent down, placed her lips on top of his and was hoping this would make him feel better. Nami lifted up her head to see that Luffy's pained face was gone, but Luffy was still clenching his stomach. Nami looked over at his stomach and she stood up. Nami walked over to Luffy's stomach and said, Luffy, remove your arms, so I can look at your stomach. Luffy complied and removed his arms. Nami put her hands on his stomach and lightly pressed. Nami pressed and pressed, until she heard, ouch, from Luffy. Nami looked puzzled, but she was worried. So Nami decided to wait by Luffy's side until everyone returned. So there they were, Nami and Luffy, in the navigation room, with Luffy in pain. Luffy was still clenching his stomach, but his pained look on his face went away. Only reason was because Nami was calming him down by kissing. Nami had no clue why he was in pain. At first the thought was because Luffy had finally found love with Nami. It was something else, and what was causing his pain was soon to be figured out, because 2 members of the Mugiwara crew had returned, Chopper and Sanji. Nami Swan, where are you? Asked Sanji. Nami sighed and then she yelled, over here. Nami Swan, you busy working? Sanji went into the navigation room to see an image he wished was a nightmare. Right in front of him was Nami with Luffy, with Nami's hand on his stomach. Sanji walked out and fell on the deck with defeat. Chopper walked into the navigation room to see the same thing, but unlike Sanji, actually asked, what's wrong? Chopper, Luffy is in pain. Call a doctor? Chopper, you're the doctor. Oh right, so what's the problem? Luffy has stomach pains. Where are they located? Right here, said Nami, as she pointed to the spot. Luffy, did you eat anything today? Asked Chopper. Just some chicken. Luffy, you ate the chicken, that was for dinner tonight. I haven't deboned it. Luffy, where did you leave it? I left the plate at the table. Sanji walked to the table in the dining hall. Just as Sanji entered, he saw the plate, clean with some bones, but they looked partially chewed. Sanji picked up the plate and walked it back to the navigation room. Sanji handed the plate to Chopper. Chopper looked over the plate and said, I think I know what's wrong with Luffy. Luffy, can you stand up? Asked Chopper. No. Chopper changed into his giant form and picked up Luffy. Chopper put Luffy down gently on the deck in the sun and then asked, Luffy, can you still use your gum powers? Yes. Okay Luffy, here's what I'm asking. Make a balloon. Gum balloon. Luffy blew up and Chopper jumped on top of him. As hard as Chopper could jump, out came the bone that was causing Luffy's stomach pain. Nami smiled in relief and Sanji said, good job Chopper. Me. Not, I'm not, just a doctor, said Chopper. Sanji then saw a scene he didn't want to see, a true smile on Nami's face. He then looked at Luffy and saw the same smile. Sanji stood and looked stunned as he could be. He held his composure and walked up to Nami and asked, Nami Swan, do you want some tea? Sure, said Nami. Sanji walked off to the kitchen. As he arrived, he got out a teapot, poured water inside a tea kettle, started the stove, and placed the tea kettle on top. Sanji stood at the stove and waited for the sound of the kettle whistle. As Sanji stood there, he kept thinking about the smiles he saw on Nami's face and Luffy's face. Could it be? Could it be? was a thought that kept running through Sanji's mind over and over like a recording on a tape player. Whistle. The teapot was whistling, which broke Sanji out of his thoughts. Sanji moved the teapot onto a different burner, went to a cabinet and got out a teacup and a plate. Sanji went outside with the prepared tea, and handed it off to Nami. "Here you go, Nami Swan." "Thank you, Sanji," said Nami, and she sipped her tea. "Oi Sanji, I'm hungry," said Luffy. "You just ate and you got chicken bones stuck in your stomach. Surprised it didn't get stuck in your throat, Luffy," said Chopper. "But Chopper, I'm hungry. Doctor's orders, no eating for an hour," said Chopper. "No, food, for an hour," said Luffy, flabbergasted. "Nami, can you help me, to make sure I don't eat for an hour?" asked Luffy. "Luffy, I have a map to work on, please Nami. I won't bother you for the rest of the day," said Luffy while grabbing her hands. "Alright Luffy," with her hands still being held. That alone caught Sanji's attention and it got him thinking, stupid captain, holding her hands. "Nami Swan, that smile on your face. Why isn't it there for me?" Sanji silently cried to himself in his head. On the outside he had his usual face. "Sanji-kun, you alright?" asked Nami. "Fine. Why do you ask?" "Well, you have your hands wrapped around Luffy's neck." Sanji looked down and saw that indeed his hands were around Luffy's neck. "Alright Sanji, I won't steal food from your kitchen. Nami will make sure of that," said Luffy, which made Sanji kick Luffy right back into the ocean. "Not again," said Nami. "Captain overboard," said Chopper. "Luffy," yelled Nami just before she once again jumped into the water. Sanji just stood there watching this tiny little scene unfold in front of his eyes. Without a second thought, Sanji walked over to the side of the ship, to see Nami holding onto Luffy while swimming to shore. Sanji just walked away. That night the rest of the Mugiwara crew returned from the town and heard about the action that had occurred earlier that day, at dinner. "Captain San fell off the boat twice? Robin, didn't you hear? Luffy was thrown off once by Nami's bubbles, while Sanji was the one who kicked him," said Usopp. "Wait, who saved him?" asked Zoro. "Nami, you're super awesome," said Frankie. "Nami-san, because you saved Captain. Mind showing your panties?" asked Brook. "Brook, do you want to end up like Luffy?" asked Nami. "No, Nami-san," said Brook. "Then don't ask me that question again." "Hi," said Brook. "Okay, Nami still is scary," said Chopper. "Robin-chan, do you want some cake? It is baked with my love," asked Sanji. "Aw, thank you, Chef-san," said Robin. "I would jump into the deepest oceans for you, Robin-chan," said Sanji. "Chef-san, why aren't you paying any attention to Navigator-san?" asked Robin. "What do you mean? Chef-san, all night you have been paying attention to me. Navigator-san must feel lonely." "Nami Swan, do you want some cake too?" asked Sanji. "Yes please," said Nami with a smile. Of course for Sanji that smile wasn't a true smile. After dinner, almost everyone went to their quarters. Sanji stayed in the kitchen to clean up all of the dishes. While he was cleaning, he overheard voices outside the kitchen. Sanji peeked through the window to see shadowy figures. After a minute or so the shadowy figures became clear and he saw with his own eyes. On the deck of the boat was Luffy and Nami, alone once again. "Luffy, you okay?" asked Nami. "Yeah, I'm fine. Why do you ask?" "Luffy, you seem to be in a different place tonight." "Oh well, I wasn't really." "Luffy, yes you were. I was enjoying the food." "Nami, why did you pull me outside?" "I wanted to talk to you." "Nami, what did you want to talk about?" "About you kissing me." Sanji overheard of that and fell over. After Sanji had fallen over, he got right back up. Went back to cleaning up the kitchen. While going through his head was, Luffy kissed Nami? Meanwhile outside, Nami and Luffy were outside on the deck just talking. They were talking about Luffy kissing Nami. "Like I said Nami, when I kissed you, I got better. That's why I asked earlier if your lips are made out of medicine." "Luffy, my lips aren't made out of medicine. Then how come I got better after I kissed you?" "I don't know. Maybe the pain just stopped for a few." "Nami," said Luffy as he closed the gap in between him and Nami. Nami couldn't move, she couldn't breathe when Luffy placed his arms around her. "Nami, I knew it. When you kissed me I got better. When I hug you, you get a fever. I think I make you sick and you make me feel better," said Luffy. Nami got movement back in her body. and punched Luffy in the face and said, "Oi Luffy, what are you thinking?" "I just had a theory," said Luffy. "You had a theory, Luffy?" "Yes, and it was right. What's your theory, Luffy?" "I make you sick while you make me feel better, that's your theory?" "Well, it makes sense, Luffy." "No, it doesn't, Nami, it makes sense to me." "Luffy, you're not making me sick." "Luffy, do you know what infatuation is?" "No," said Luffy. "Infatuation is when one person falls for another." "Oh, love," said Luffy. "Wait, you know what that means?" "Nami, living on the island with the snake pirates, I learned what love was." "What did you learn?" "Basically what love was. Boa kept asking me to marry her." Nami turned pale white when she heard that Boa Hancock asked Luffy to marry her. Nami saw Boa Hancock once, and saw the beauty that she held. Maybe Luffy had a type. Why else would he be asked to marry? Nami asked Luffy a question. "Luffy, did you love her?" "No. Want to know what's funny, Nami?" "What?" "She never did what we did, which was a kiss, right?" "But she wanted to marry you." "I didn't." "Why? She's a catch and beauty." "Well, I wanted to keep being a pirate." "Oh. Luffy, what do you think of me?" "Well, Nami, I think of as a good nakama and my most trusted friend." "Oh," Nami said while hiding the hurt from her eyes. Then Luffy spoke and said, "But." "Luffy, don't say anything, I'm going back to work on my map." Nami got up, but Luffy stopped in her tracks by saying, "But Nami." "No, Luffy, Luffy." Nami looked at Luffy, who looked to be in pain. He was grabbing his chest. Nami with concern sat back down and moved closer to him. She looked into his face and asked, "Luffy, you alright?" "Nami, my chest hurts." "Eh? Why?" "As soon as you got up, my chest started to hurt." "Luffy, I think you need to lie down." "Yeah, you're probably right. Can you help me stand up?" "Sure." Nami stood up and helped Luffy to stand up. They walked back to the navigation room, so they wouldn't wake anyone up. Nami helped Luffy to the couch and sat him down. Of course, for Luffy, he fell down and Nami fell on top of him. Their faces were only a few inches apart and they just looked at each other. Their eyes staring back at each other in a quiet. Luffy broke the quiet and said, "Nami, my chest still hurts, but the pain is subsiding." "That's good," said Nami. "Nami, could you get off of me now?" asked Luffy. "Oh sure," said Nami with a blush. After Nami had gotten off of Luffy, Luffy spoke, "Nami, how do you know if you like someone?" "Didn't Boa teach you that?" "Well, Nami, she only asked me to marry her and that she loved me." Oh, said Nami. "Yep, I really had a hard time to convince her." "Convince her?" "Nami, she was like in another world, though she does help a lot, doesn't she?" "Luffy, I think we're doing fine before you met her. Defending ourselves from the Navy and rival pirates. Plus she works with the Navy. What if she just isn't trying to use you?" "Nami, I can trust her." "How are you sure, Luffy?" "Nami, she trained me, she was probably just using that as an excuse to see your weaknesses," said Nami. "Nami, I don't think so. Why do you say that, Luffy?" "For the 2 years apart, all she did was help me out. She helped me out big time, she's such a strong woman." "Well, if she's so good, then just go back to her," said Nami. Ash stormed out of the navigation room and left Luffy dumbfounded on the couch. Nami was mad, and not even the night air could cool her down. This is when her cheeks started to feel wet and she started to thinking to herself, does Luffy like Boa, or does Luffy really believe that she was just helping him? Luffy, sometimes you can be a real idiot. I may be right about her just using him to learn his weaknesses, but then again he was right about her helping him out. She says she loves him, but he doesn't return it. What would happen if I said, "Luffy, I love you"? "Navigator-san, do you love Luffy?" said voice that made Nami turn around, and with shock on her face she saw Robin. Robin asked her question again, "Navigator-san, do you like Luffy?" "Eh? Robin, I thought you were asleep?" asked Nami. "It's my turn to be on watch. Navigator-san, do you like Luffy?" Robin asked again. "Wait, did you hear everything I said?" "No." "Good, then the rest was said in my head." "Then what did you hear?" "The part where you said, 'Luffy, I love you.' Now is that true?" All honesty, Robin, I don't know. I mean, we kissed, but he thought it was because he thought my lips were made out medicine." "Wait, you and Captain San kissed?" "Yes, a few times." "So you do like him, Robin-chan?" "No, I don't." "Okay, if you say so, Navigator-san. Just to let you know, You blushed when you said you kissed him. Robin left Nami alone on the deck with her thoughts. Nami sat down on the deck, rested her back near the wall, and then she brought her head to her knees. Nami, came a voice to her ears. Nami lifted her head to see the one who has caused this pain, good and bad. Luffy standing right in front of her. Luffy, you're up. I thought your stomach was bothering you? Nami, was all that was said, and then Luffy lifted Nami of her the deck. Held her in a tight embrace and said, Nami, do you like me or do you love me? I overheard you and you talking to Robin, and I want to know whether you like me or do you love me. Nami's head was on Luffy's shoulder, and the embrace she was in was a tight one, and she couldn't break free from it, so all she could do was to say, Luffy, you're sick, you shouldn't be standing up. Nami, you're crying. No, I'm not, I'm just worried. Nami, don't lie. With that, Luffy let go of Nami, took his hat off of his head and put it on her head. You know I don't like liars. Nami stood there, with her right hand on Luffy's hat, and saw that Luffy was about to walk to his room, so in a split second Nami ran behind Luffy, wrapped her arms around Luffy and put her face into Luffy's back. Nami said to Luffy, I'm worried, you should go and lie down. Of course, because of the sobs and the fact her face was in Luffy's back, it sounded more mumbled to Luffy than it sounded to her. So Luffy turned around, put his hands on Nami's shoulders, looked her straight in the eyes and then hugged her. Luffy then said to Nami, I think I need you to repeat what you said. I said I'm worried, you should go and lie down. Nami, I'm fine, just my stomach is acting up, and they continued the hug. Luffy. Nami lifted up her head and looked at Luffy. Luffy looked down at her, and ever so slowly Nami and Luffy moved their heads closer to each other, with their lips lightly touching each other. Nami and Luffy decided to kiss each other harder. Little did they know was they had an onlooker, who was seeing this whole scene right before his eyes. Nami Swan. Why? That stupid captain, I'll kill him. Then again, I could be dreaming. Sanji. You're too loud. Time for sleep, right, Chopper? Oi, Unibrow, I thought you were going to get some water. Marimo. I'm not thirsty anymore. Oh, said Nami, yep, I really had a hard time to convince her. Convince her? Nami, she was like in another world, though she does help a lot, doesn't she? Luffy, I think we're doing fine before you met her. Defending ourselves from the Navy and rival pirates. Plus she works with the Navy. What if she just isn't trying to use you? Nami, I can trust her. How are you sure, Luffy? Nami, she trained me, she was probably just using that as an excuse to see your weaknesses, said Nami. Nami, I don't think so. Why do you say that, Luffy? For the 2 years apart, all she did was help me out. She helped me out big time, she's such a strong woman. Well, if she's so good, then just go back to her, said Nami. Ash stormed out of the navigation room and left Luffy dumbfounded on the couch. Nami was mad, and not even the night air could cool her down. This is when her cheeks started to feel wet and she started to thinking to herself, does Luffy like Boa, or does Luffy really believe that she was just helping him? Luffy, sometimes you can be a real idiot. I may be right about her just using him to learn his weaknesses, but then again he was right about her helping him out. She says she loves him, but he doesn't return it. What would happen if I said, Luffy, I love you? Navigator-san. Do you love Luffy? Said voice that made Nami turn around, and with shock on her face she saw Robin. Robin asked her question again, Navigator-san, do you like Luffy? Robin, I thought you were asleep? Asked Nami. It's my turn to be on watch. Navigator-san, do you like Luffy? Robin asked again. Wait, did you hear everything I said? No, good, then the rest was said in my head. Then what did you hear? The part where you said, Luffy, I love you. Now is that true? All honesty, Robin, I don't know. I mean, we kissed, but he thought it was because he thought my lips were made out medicine. Wait, you and Captain San kissed? Yes, a few times. So you do like him, Robin-chan? No, I don't. Okay, if you say so, Navigator-san. Just to let you know, you blushed when you said you kissed him. Robin left Nami alone on the deck with her thoughts. Nami sat down on the deck, rested her back near the wall, and then she brought her head to her knees. Nami, came a voice to her ears. Nami lifted her head to see the one who has caused this pain, good and bad. Luffy standing right in front of her. Luffy, you're up. I thought your stomach was bothering you? Nami, was all that was said, and then Luffy lifted Nami of her the deck. Held her in a tight embrace and said, Nami, do you like me or do you love me? I overheard you and you talking to Robin and I want to know whether you like me or do you love me. Nami's head was on Luffy's shoulder and the embrace she was in was a tight one and she couldn't break free from it, so all she could do was to say, Luffy, you're sick, you shouldn't be standing up. Nami, you're crying. No, I'm not, I'm just worried. Nami, don't lie. With that, Luffy let go of Nami, took his hat off of his head and put it on her head. You know I don't like liars. Nami stood there, with her right hand on Luffy's hat and saw that Luffy was about to walk to his room, so in a split second Nami ran behind Luffy, wrapped her arms around Luffy and put her face into Luffy's back. Nami said to Luffy, I'm worried, you should go and lie down. Of course, because of the sobs and the fact her face was in Luffy's back, it sounded more mumbled to Luffy than it sounded to her. So Luffy turned around, put his hands on Nami's shoulders, looked her straight in the eyes and then hugged her. Luffy then said to Nami, I think I need you to repeat what you said. I said I'm worried, you should go and lie down. Nami, I'm fine, just my stomach is acting up, and they continued the hug. Luffy. Nami lifted up her head and looked at Luffy. Luffy looked down at her and ever so slowly Nami and Luffy moved their heads closer to each other, with their lips lightly touching each other. Nami and Luffy decided to kiss each other harder. Little did they know was they had an onlooker, who was seeing this whole scene right before his eyes. Nami Swan. Why? That stupid captain, I'll kill him, then again I could be dreaming? Sanji. You're too loud. Time for sleep, right, Chopper? Oi, Unibrow. I thought you were going to get some water. Marimo. I'm not thirsty anymore. Marimo, I'm not thirsty anymore, said Sanji as he looked out the porthole only to see a nightmare before his eyes. Sanji was furious and he opened the door. Sanji was ready to pounce on Luffy for kissing Nami, but he was stopped in his tracks when he saw them stop kissing and then saw them looking at each other in the eyes. Sanji looked at the expressions on their faces and saw actual happiness with love. About time they kissed, Chef-kun, said a voice coming from right behind him. Sanji turned around to see Robin with her usual smile and her blue eyes looking onward. I have never seen Navigator San look so happy nor Captain San. Look at those smiles and the happiness in their eyes. Sanji looked over and saw indeed happiness, with an embrace no one could beat. Robin Swan. How long have you known? Chef-kun. I just found out recently myself, she said with a smile. Sure you did, said Sanji as he walked back to his quarters with small smirk on his face. Robin stood there and watched the lovebirds and then saw them hold hands. They walked back to the navigator room. Oyasumi Navigator San. Captain San. Robin walked back to the library. In the navigator room, Nami and Luffy were just sitting and staring at each other, in silence. The silence got a little annoying and Nami spoke first. Luffy, I really think you need to lie down. Why, your lips are made out of medicine, I feel fine. Luffy, let me feel your forehead. Nami leaned over to Luffy's forehead, put her hand against his skin and felt the warmth. Luffy, you still have a fever. Nami, I'm fine, I just need to take another dose of medicine. Luffy leaned over to Nami and had his lips lightly touch hers. The kiss was quick and Luffy leaned back to his original seat. See, Nami, I just need to keep kissing your lips and I'll feel better. Luffy, I told you my lips aren't made of medicine. Nami, I feel better after I kiss you. I know, let's have Chopper test your lips, let's go now. Luffy, Chopper is asleep and you need to lie down. Seriously, you're looking pale. Luffy didn't listen and stood up, only to feel dizziness. Luffy sat back down on the couch, and Nami grabbed his shoulders and said, Luffy, stay here and lie down, okay? Nami gently pushed him down on the couch. Nami, I'm kinda cold, I'll get you a blanket. Okay. Nami went to go get the blanket that was on her chair and as soon as she picked it up, she felt two arms wrap around her waist. Nami was suddenly pulled back to the couch and on top of Luffy. I don't need a blanket, I just need you. Luffy fell right to sleep with a blushing Nami in his arms. Nami threw the blanket over them and followed him into a deep slumber. The next morning everyone was in the mess hall. Well, not everyone. Nami and Luffy were still asleep in the navigator room. They're in happy bliss and happily sleeping in each other's arms, dreaming about each other. Nami's dream woke her up, and as she slowly opened her eyes, she looked around to see that she was in her navigator room and then she looked around to her side to see Luffy asleep. Luffy looks so cute while he's asleep, Nami thought to herself. Nami tried to get up, only she couldn't. It felt as if something was holding her down. She looked down at her waist. To her surprise, she saw Luffy's arm bounded tightly around her. It was almost like a coil around her waist. Luffy, wake up. I can't move. MHMHPPPH, Luffy, wake up. Nami, I'm sleeping. Nami thought to herself. How can she get out of his grip? But then she thought, does she really want to be out of his grip? Nami's stomach grumbled and she realized that she needed to get out of his grip, so she came up with a plan, and the plan was, Luffy, time to eat. Nami, I'm not hungry, I just want to sleep. Nami, let me sleep. Luffy, you're not hungry? No. Nami tried her best to turn around, and failed. Luffy's grip was too tight. Nami started squirming until Luffy woke up and asked, why are you moving so much? Want to get free so I can feel you forehead. Why? You said you weren't hungry, so I want to see if your fever is back. Oh well, hang on. Luffy released Nami from his coil, and before she could do anything, he kissed her and said, I took my medicine. Do you still need to check to see if I have a fever? Yes, Luffy. I think you're getting worse. Okay. Nami leaned over with her hand in front and felt Luffy's forehead. She gasped when she felt how hot he had gotten. Luffy, stay right here, don't move. Okay, Nami. But why? Just do it. Okay. I'm going to get Chopper. Nami ran out of the navigator room like a flash of lightning. As soon as she got to the mess hall, she walked right up to Chopper and said, Chopper, something is wrong with Luffy. His fever is back and he has lost his appetite. Oh no, someone get a doctor. You are the doctor, Nami yelled. To be continued. Nami and Chopper ran back to the navigator room, only to find Luffy standing up and not lying down. Nami, Luffy looks fine. Chopper, he was hot, like fire. Nami, I'll check his temperature. Thank you, Chopper. Alright, Luffy, I'm going to take your temperature now. Okay, Chopper. Hey, while you're taking my temperature, can you check Nami's lips? Why? I think they're medicine. Really? Lips with medicine in them? That's amazing, said Chopper with excitement. Chopper. Luffy has no clue what he's talking about. My lips aren't made out of medicine. Then how come the many times I have? What was that word? K-I-S-S. I've felt better. Luffy, my lips aren't made out of medicine. It's just a coincidence that you felt better after kissing me. But Nami, Luffy, I need to accurately take your temperature, so look down at me. Okay, Chopper. Chopper took out a thermometer from his hat, put it in Luffy's mouth. He and Nami waited to find out what the temperature was going to be. Beep beep beep. Well, it sounds like your temperature is high. From just those 3 beeps? Yes, I don't get it, said Luffy. What don't you understand? Chopper, how can I have a high fever if I just Nami? Not this again, said Nami as she placed her hand on her forehead. Nami, I'll have Nami's lips tested to see if they are truly made out of medicine. You're going along with this, thanks, Chopper, said Luffy. Chopper, could you leave? But I need to check his temperature. Fine, check then leave. Okay, Nami. Chopper looked at the thermometer and saw the number. Chopper, what's temp? Nami, his temp is normal. How can that be? You just said if the thermometer does 3 beeps then that he has a high temperature. Are you sure that thing just isn't broken? I'll take it to Frankie later, but still his temperature is normal. But his forehead, Nami touched her hand and it was still warm from touching Luffy's forehead. Here, Chopper, feel my hand. It's still warm from touching Luffy's forehead. Chopper touched her hand and said, Nami, your hand is cold. Oh yeah, let me see your lips. Nami started putting the pieces together. She added the facts that Luffy would start to feel sick whenever he thought about her, or how he felt warm when he was around her, and why temperature was normal. She figured out what was wrong with him. Could it be that he knew what kissing actually was? Could it be that he was actually falling in love with Nami? He did say to her that he did think about her and how beautiful she had gotten. But then again, this is the captain, and when it comes down to love he wouldn't get it. But for the past few days he has changed. Goodbye, Chopper. Nami pushed the tiny doctor out through the door, closed it right behind her and then leaned against it. Luffy, I really wish you would give up this notion about my lips being made out of medicine. It's just not possible, and asking Chopper to see if my lips were made out of medicine. Plus last night. Nami thought about the kiss from last night. The one was surely not about medicine. Nami had a small smile and said, Luffy, just forget it. Stop thinking that my lips are made out medicine. Nami left the room, leaving Luffy sitting there in bewilderment. No more medicine, but her lips were so soft and warm. I'm going to miss that medicine. Luffy stood up and went to the door. Just as he opened the door, the light hit his eyes. When the light dissipated, he saw Nami, just looking over the bow as the sun hit her long orange hair. Nami's hair is like the ocean. Luffy grabbed his chest but he didn't fall down. Luffy just stared at her and her long hair. Then instinct kicked in, he started walking over to Nami with a determined look on his face. Before he knew it, he was standing right next to Nami. No, not right to her, right in front of her. He looked deeply in her eyes, then he slowly leaned down and let his lips lightly touch hers. This got Nami's attention, and before she could react, he removed his lips and then hugged her that he want to let go of her. Nami just put her head on his shoulder, smiling to herself. Nami, I don't want the medicine to go away. I don't want you to go away. There we're alone. Except for the fact that everyone saw everything from the crow's nest, including Sanji, who despite smoking a cigarette was imaging on how he would beat that stupid captain of his. Then he started crying quietly. Nami and Luffy were alone, or so they thought, in an embrace. Nami could feel Luffy's warmth again and he had gotten warmer. Nami wanted to be released from the embrace but Luffy didn't want to let go. Luffy, could you please let me go? Why? Asked Luffy. Luffy, you're too warm for me. Luffy let Nami go. Nami stepped back from Luffy and looked at him. Luffy looked like Luffy. He didn't look sick. So why was he warm? Nami looked away from Luffy, closed her eyes and looked her into her brain. She thought about everything in the last few days, what Luffy did, the many times he's hugged her or the kissing. Luffy saying he's sick, that was it. Nami's eyes snapped right open. She ran away from Luffy to find Chopper. She first went to the Chopper's room, he wasn't there. So she then ran to the mess hall, but he wasn't there. Nami was running back and forth while Luffy was watching her. Left and right his head turned as she was looking for Chopper. Nami, what are you doing? Luffy, I'm trying to find Chopper. Why? Because I think I figured out something. You figured out your lips are made out of medicine? Nami stopped in her tracks, looked at Luffy and banged him in the head so hard that he fell to the ground that a lump grew on his head. Luffy for the final T, me. Medicine? My lips, medicine. Nami touched her lips and looked down at Luffy and came to a realization. Luffy was falling in love with her, and he just didn't know it. Chopper, where are you? Asked Nami. Coming, Nami, said Chopper as he was jumping down from the crow's nest. Chopper, why were you up there? Well, I was up there because, Luffy, what happened? Don't go ignoring my question. Why were you up there? Luffy, are you okay? Asked Chopper. Chopper, tell me why you were up there? Hours later, Luffy was lying down in a bed in Nami's room, knocked out. Wait, you thinks that's wrong with Luffy? Yes, Chopper, it makes sense, finally, said Nami with exasperated look. I never figured that could be an illness. Of course now it explains a lot. Luffy was starting to stir. Nami looked over and saw Luffy's eyelids moving. Chopper, could you leave us alone? Sure, thanks Chopper, said Nami with a smile. Chopper left the room, with Nami closing the door. Nami walked over to the bed and gently put her hand on top of his hand. Luffy's eyes opened and Nami quietly said, Luffy, it's time for your medicine, already. Yes Luffy, okay. Nami started leaning down closer and closer to Luffy. She gently placed her lips on his and Luffy happily accepted. They were alone, the end. And well guys, that's it. That's the story finally over because I finally found the time to finish it.